Today you will experience a life chapter as a Qing dynasty palace eunuch. Behind high walls and vermilion gates, beneath golden-tiled roofs, what you exchanged your entire life for was nothing more than the scattered ash of a single stick of incense. In the final years of the Daoguang reign, in Hejian Prefecture, Zhili, year after year of drought and locust plagues left the fields barren. The family had already gone 3 days without food. I was only 8 years old. My father held my hands for a long time, his eyes reddening, yet not a single tear fell. My mother sewed the last scrap of cloth the family owned into the lining of my worn cotton coat. That winter, 3 families in the village had already sent their children to be castrated. Father said that entering the palace at least meant you wouldn't starve to death. I did not understand what that truly meant. The castration was performed by a specialist they called a knife man. I remember the room was very dark, a sliver of cold wind seeping through the door crack. I gripped the edge of the Kong bed with all my strength. After that I lay bedridden for a full 2 months before I could walk again. The knife man said that if you survived, your fate was good. If not, that was your fate too. I survived. Entering the palace is not a bad thing. That is how Father tried to comfort me. But when he turned away, I saw his head drop low, his shoulders trembling one after another, as the wind made his back shiver like a leaf. The day I entered the palace was a spring morning in the 5th year of Xianfeng. I saw the Forbidden City for the first time. Those towering red walls and brass-studded copper gates, standing beneath the archway, my legs would not stop shaking. I was assigned to the sweeping detail under the Imperial Household Department. Every morning before dawn, I rose to sweep the courtyards. Each stroke of the broom sent dust billowing into my face. The palace was not as clean as people imagined. The senior eunuch above me ordered me to finish my own work and then do his as well, threatening to mix sand into my food if I refused. The palace had many rules, but human nature was more complicated than any of them. Emptying chamber pots, carrying meals, guarding doors, relaying messages. Every small task in the palace came with strict rules. A single mistake meant a flogging. For the first 2 years, my knees never fully healed. I learned one essential truth. Keep your words sweet, your back bent, and your eyes sharp. In the palace, getting ahead depended not on strength, but on reading people's moods and intentions. My opportunity came through a teacup. A senior figure knocked over his tea. I knelt down immediately to wipe it clean and spoke an auspicious phrase just at the right moment. He paused and looked at me twice. I was transferred from the sweeping unit to an errand post in the Imperial Household Department. It was still the lowest rank, but a step closer to power. That single step had cost me 3 years of grinding submission. I began to teach myself to read. Most eunuchs in the palace were illiterate. Those who could read were considered a cut above. I stole moments beside a scholar attached to a senior household to learn about 100 characters. During the Tongji reign, I was already a named official eunuch in the Imperial Household Department, barely 25 years old, yet already overseeing a dozen junior eunuchs running errands. There was an open secret in the palace. The closer you were to your master, the richer the perks. Relaying a command, delivering a note, all of it came with small pouches of coins slipped quietly into your hands. The senior figure I served was highly favored, and my name spread through the inner palace as a result. When those above began asking for me by name to handle affairs, I knew my true life had finally arrived. By the year I rose to head eunuch, I had spent nearly 20 years in the palace. Once that rank was conferred, everything inside and outside the palace passed through my hands. The keys to the palace gates were in my keeping. Which gate opened, which stayed shut, who could enter and who could not. All of it was decided by a single glance from me. Outside the palace, I secured a small courtyard residence west of Fuqing Gate, sending a nephew from my home village to manage it. The savings I had quietly accumulated were tucked away in its cabinets. When word reached home that I had become head eunuch, relatives came calling one after another. My father had been dead for years, but my elderly mother was brought to Beijing, where she lived with me for 3 years. Those were the most glorious years of my life. Palace affairs ran smoothly, and outside wealth steadily grew. I walked with confidence, spoke with authority, and even my dreams were settled and sound. I once believed that as long as I remained careful, read the times correctly, and never backed the wrong faction, I could sustain this life indefinitely. Every man in the palace thought exactly the same thing. In the Guangxu years, the winds inside the palace began to shift. The struggle between Emperor and Empress Dowager, the 100 Days Reform. The world outside had fallen into chaos, and the waters within the palace grew equally murky. The senior figure I served lost favor in a palace power struggle. Overnight, everyone in her household scattered. I too became a masterless eunuch with no one to answer to. I was reassigned to perform menial labor in the secluded area of the cold palace. No master had resided there in a decade. Weeds grew up through the cracks in the stone paving. The silence inside was even deeper than outside the walls. The people who used to bow and nod at me now walked past without a second glance. The snobbery of the palace was the most tangible reality in that entire world. During the Qingzi year, the Boxers entered Beijing and the allied foreign armies followed. Even the Empress Dowager fled. Through those days, panic gripped the palace. I hid in a side hall, with no idea what the empire would become. After the court returned, I was implicated in a minor incident, accused of pilfering something from the storeroom. The item was not taken by me, but someone named me nonetheless. In the palace, once someone took a bite out of you, whether you could recover depended entirely on whether anyone would speak in your defense. I had no master, no patron, and so I had no choice but to accept the charge. My stipend was docked, my rank demoted, and I fell step by step from head eunuch back to the lowest class of miscellaneous servants. 20 years of climbing, undone in less than a year, with no interest paid in return. The matter of my savings was also exposed. The courtyard house was reported. Constables arrived at the gate. The nephew from my home village had vanished. The bulk of the money was confiscated. I could only stand inside the palace walls and watch, powerless. It was then I finally understood. What one accumulates in the palace is not wealth, but influence and proximity to power. Once the power dissolves, the wealth becomes vapor, and every human connection evaporates with it. There was another piece of common knowledge in the palace. Eunuchs expelled without anyone to take them in were sent to Njizwang, or placed in a eunuch temple. When I first heard this, a chill ran down my spine. In the final years of the Xiantong reign, the Qing dynasty fell. The emperor abdicated, and the palace eunuchs were ordered to vacate within a fixed period. I was 57 years old that year. When the palace gates closed, there was no road left to come back on. The day I left the palace, a sharp north wind was blowing. I stood outside the Meridian Gate and looked back once at those vermilion gates. I said nothing. I simply stood there for a very long time. The world outside was utterly foreign to me. I had lived inside the palace for nearly 50 years. I did not know the price of goods, did not know how to rent a room, and was not even comfortable walking through crowded streets. Among the former palace eunuchs scattered everywhere, some attached themselves to branches of their old masters' households, some fell into begging, and some were swindled out of whatever little money remained. I was not spared. No one outside the palace understood my court etiquette and protocol. The rules I had spent half a lifetime mastering were utterly worthless beyond those gates, and even a source of ridicule. No sons, no daughters, and my closest kin long since gone their separate ways. The remaining savings would not last long. I finally understood why the old eunuchs always gathered in groups at the temple, because there was simply nowhere else to go. The eunuch temple stood on the outskirts of Beijing, housing 30 to 50 elderly eunuchs together. The incense inside burned thinly, but it was our last refuge. We shared the same fate and found some small comfort in that. The temple had an old custom. Eunuchs who had saved money in the palace contributed funds to support the destitute ones. We looked after each other, which was the only reason none of us froze to death in the streets. Beside the temple was the Njizwang eunuch burial ground. Row after row of small stone markers stood there, each bearing the name of a person who had come out of the palace and would never return. Sometimes I would talk with the others about life in the palace, which mistress had a gentle temperament, which year held the greatest dangers. But midway through the telling, everyone would fall silent. One day I asked the oldest man in the temple whether he had any regrets. He thought for a long time, then said, "What is there to regret?" At the time, there was only one road to take. I heard him out and did not ask again. I began putting the few characters I had learned in the palace to use, keeping accounts and ledgers for the temple, and writing letters home for the old men who could not read. This became the only thing in my later years that felt worthwhile. On nights when sleep would not come, I thought about those years inside the palace. I thought about the sight of my father's back as he walked away after leaving me there. I thought about the scrap of cloth my mother had sewn into my cotton coat. I entered through those vermilion palace gates at the age of 7 and walked out at 57. 50 years. I had buried my deepest roots inside that gate, and when I came out, my hands were empty. This was my life. Inside those high walls, I was a shadow of the imperial court. No one ever asked what my name was. This life chapter, did it reach you?